Responding to one of the greatest non-theological obstacles between Jews and Catholics, PTWF began investigating the papacy of Pope Pius XII, Eugenio Pacelli, in 2006. Capitalizing on our international access, we set out to reveal thousands of documents and eyewitness testimonies to disclose the Vatican's secret work to mitigate suffering and to save human lives. For clarification, Pope Pius XII was the name taken by Eugenio Pacelli when he was elected Pope March 2, 1939. The term Holy See refers to the worldwide Catholic Church or the See of Rome or the jurisdiction of the Pope. The Holy See is housed in the Vatican State. The term nuncio refers to a particular ambassador from the Holy See to a particular country. Nunciature is a term used to describe the embassy, where the nuncio would reside. You will also hear references and see facsimiles from the Acts and Documents of the Holy See during the Second World War. These are 12 volumes which identify the actual over 5,125 documents currently under canonical seal in the Vatican secret archives. This unprecedented study was published between 1965 and 1981. The Vatican condemned National Socialism at every opportunity. Of 44 public speeches made by Pacelli in Germany from 1917 to 1929, 40 of them attacked National Socialistic doctrines. The Tablet article, which is this magazine article, dated October 24, 1942, tells of how the Nazi Department of Public Enlightenment produced 10 million copies of a pamphlet distributed in Europe and Latin America condemning the Vatican's intervention protesting the Nazi persecution of the Jews. After meeting with Pope Pius XI in 1938, Pacelli writes by hand his disgust with the recently enacted Italian racial laws. He says that he's so disturbed that the Italian government is importing German anti-Semitism into Italy. Here we have two handwritten letters from Eugenio Pacelli dated May 1st and May 4th, 1924, where they state, "It is very painful that not only a few Catholics are deceived and led astray. What confirms, at least for Germany, is that Nazism is maybe the most dangerous heresy of our time." And the other says, "The heresy of Nazism puts state and race above everything, above true religion, above the truth, and above justice." These are Catholic electoral statistics in the 1932 election of Adolf Hitler as Chancellor. He was opposed by German Catholics 3-1. We have documents indicating the German bishops ordered the excommunication of members of the Hitler Party as early as 1930. The precepts of the Hitler Party are incompatible with the teachings of the Roman Catholic Church, and therefore followers of this group may not receive communion or any of the sacraments. The Vatican newspaper L'Osservatore Romano article of October 11, 1930, reports the excommunication orders issued by the German bishops for anyone who joins the Hitler Party. January 1933, 3 weeks after Adolf Hitler came into power, a German Catholic organization published this article called A Serious Word in Serious Times. One of the important quotes was, "What happened in our country since last year is a national disaster." Here in May of 1937, Cardinal Mundelein states that perhaps you will ask yourselves, how is it that a nation of 60 million intelligent persons bows in servile fear before a foreigner and a fool in the bargain, and before two scoundrels like Goebbels and Goering? Then in September of 1938, Pope Pius XI made this statement, "Mark well in the Catholic Mass, Abraham is our patriarch and our forefather. Anti-Semitism is incompatible with the lofty thought which in fact this fact expresses. It is a movement which with Christians can have nothing to do with. No, I say to you, it is impossible for a Christian to take part in anti-Semitism. Spiritually, we are all Semites." And then Sister Pascalina testifies that she was talking to Eugenio Pacelli in 1929, 4 years before Adolf Hitler came into power. She stated that the nuncio had said that I would be very, very mistaken in thinking that all of this could end well. This man is completely obsessed. All that is not of use to him he destroys. All that he says and writes carries the mark of his egocentricity. This man is capable of trampling on corpses and eliminating all that obstructs him. I cannot understand how many in Germany, even among the best people, do not understand and are not able to draw the lesson from what he writes and from what he says. From the Berlin Morgen Post newspaper, the quote, "The election of Cardinal Pacelli is not accepted with favor in Germany because always opposed to Nazism and practically determined the policies of the Vatican under his predecessor. Germany was one of the only countries that did not attend Pacelli's coronation." This is an extremely revealing letter dated March 3rd, 1939, the day after Pacelli was elected Pope. It's a confidential U.S. Foreign Service letter which was sent to Washington by a U.S. diplomat in Cologne, Germany, reporting the new Pope's views on National Socialism and of Hitler. And I quote, "His views, while well known to me, surprised me by their extremeness. He said that he opposed unalterably every compromise with National Socialism. He regarded Hitler not only as an untrustworthy scoundrel, but as a fundamentally wicked person. Hitler was incapable of moderation. He supported the German bishops in their anti-Nazi stand. The risk of losing part of the Catholic youth in Germany was not as great as the consequences to the Catholic Church in general around the world in surrendering to the Nazis." This paragraph is referring directly to the excommunication orders of the Catholic bishops of Germany. The following 3 slides will show you the Nazi propaganda against Eugenio Pacelli. All these cartoons show that the Catholic Church, and especially Pacelli and the Vatican, defended Jews against Nazi persecution and propaganda, and was displayed to be an instrument of the Jewish Bolshevik conspiracy. Without an audible defense of the Jews from the side of the Church, such a counter-propaganda would never have been necessary. Some additional anti-Pius and anti-Jewish cartoons. With such cartoons, I think there's no question about the Nazi attitude towards the Roman Catholic Church. Here are some additional Nazi comments about the Pope from Joseph Goebbels, Hermann Goering, and a comment from Adolf Hitler where he said, "I'll go right into the Vatican. Afterward, we can say we're sorry. We can easily do that. We've got a war going on." While in Germany at the Museum of German Resistance, we discovered this internal Gestapo report made to Adolf Hitler dated November 29, 1944, which describes in detail the failed assassination attempt against Hitler on July 20th, 1944. The Kaltenbrunner report specifically names Eugenio Pacelli and his secretary, Father Leiber, as co-conspirators in the plan to kill Adolf Hitler. And the fact is that they were co-conspirators because they refused to help negotiate a peace with Germany unless there was a change in the regime. Here is a confidential OSS document dated August 18, 1944, which details the link of the Pope's involvement with the attempt to kill Hitler through Father Leiber. On July 31, 1942, Archbishop de Jong of Utrecht wrote a powerful denunciation of the deportation of the Dutch Jews in his homily to be read throughout Holland. The reaction of the Nazi governor of Holland was to accelerate the arrests and to arrest the converted Jews first because of this remark. Because of the virulent Nazi reaction to the Archbishop's condemnation, Pope Pius XII burned his own statement, where he stated that if 40,000 Jews were killed with the remarks of an archbishop, then surely 200,000 would be killed with the remarks of a pope. His secretary, Father Leiber, asked why he isn't saving the statement for later delivery. The Pope responded that he feared his speech would fall into the hands of the Nazis only to result in more deaths. At the right, here is an internal Nazi report detailing the arrest of the Dutch Jews where it states that only the Roman Catholic Church protested. 2 days after Kristallnacht, a leading Nazi newspaper arranges for mass demonstrations against world Jewry and its black, Catholic Church, and red, Bolshevik allies. Here we see articles revealing the Vatican's policy to hire Jews who were fired due to the Italian racial laws. Here's a very significant letter which we discovered was signed directly by Cardinal Pacelli. You can see that at the bottom, where in 1938 the Polish government was going to pass legislation making kosher slaughtering illegal. Pacelli acted immediately and corresponded with Poland, where they worked to overturn this law, which they found to cause grave persecution to the Israelite community and anti-Semitic in nature. On November 30th, 1938, 3 weeks after Kristallnacht, Cardinal Pacelli sent a telegram and follow-up letter dated January 9th, 1939, to over 65 bishops and nuncios throughout the Catholic world, and asking to obtain 200,000 visas for non-Aryan Catholics. The documents referred to non-Aryan Catholics, which is a code word for Jews. The Concordat of 1933 enabled the Church to protect converted Jews, and so they used this clause to protect all Jews. In the letter below, in High Latin, Pacelli states that the bishops should not only protect these people, but also they should protect their religious precepts, their religious books, and sanctuaries. This would never be necessary to state for baptized Catholics. In addition, no one could assume in any practical sense that there were 200,000 converted Jews in 1938. Below we have a letter dated 16 January 1939 from the Archbishop of St. Andrews in Scotland, and this is in response to Cardinal Pacelli's 1938-1939 letter and telex requests for 200,000 visas. Understanding the hidden meaning, he does not mention non-Aryan Catholics, but refers to them as what they were, refugee Jews. And here's an article from December 10, 1938, from the Irish press, discussing the Pope's aid to the Jews in Germany, and speaks of Cardinal Pacelli's demonstrated actions. In 1917, at the request of the Swiss Jewish community, Archbishop Eugenio Pacelli intervened to save the Jews of Palestine from being massacred by the Ottoman Turks. There was a considerable concern that the Jews of Palestine would meet the same fate as the Armenians. Pacelli obtained guarantees from the German government that the Jews would be protected even if the use of arms were necessary. There are many critics that said that Pope Pius XII only helped converted Jews, when this is actually not true. When the Vatican tried to arrange safe passage to help many Jews emigrate, they asked many countries, how many Jews can you take? Most of the countries worldwide said none. Prime Minister of Canada even said none are too many. The Concordat of 1933 also had a clause specifically stating that converted Jews would be considered Christian. Mindful of this, the only way Pope Pius XII could save what he called this vibrant community was to use the phrase Jewish Catholics or non-Aryan Catholics as a code to describe non-converted Jews. This was also a strategic maneuver employed in case these documents fell into enemy hands. The Vatican can always justify their position because of the clause in the Concordat. The Church handed out tens of thousands of false baptismal papers. Morally, they would not lie, but they had to accomplish the objective. Had these refugees actually been converted and baptized, they would have simply been called Catholics. We discovered a series of documents from 1938 and 1939 where the Vatican is negotiating for 3,000 visas for Jews to emigrate to Brazil. Pacelli protested the high cash demands that the Brazilians were charging for these visas. The Vatican was ultimately only given 1,000 visas. We have many examples where Pacelli used his own personal fortune to subsidize these expenses. Since Brazil, U.S., and Canada, and many other nations would not allow any Jews to emigrate, the Vatican issued baptismal papers and called them non-Aryan Catholics. 1 week after the Jews arrived, their visas were revoked because they were not trained to be farmers and for practicing unacceptable religious ceremonies. They were celebrating Shabbat. This proves that these were not converted Jews. The Church used every means at its disposal to aid in the immigration of as many Jews as possible. As the personal emissary to Pope Pius XII, one of our most remarkable interviews was with Monsignor Giovanni Ferrafino, who, as a young priest, would work directly in the papal palace with the Pope. And Monsignor Ferrofino testified that he would be sent by the Pope to the President of Portugal to deliver a verbal-only message where he would request visas for Jews coming into Portugal from Germany and Poland. These visas were always issued because of the Pope's request. But the most remarkable thing was that he explains that he could verbally deliver the message, but he could not express the extreme emotion that the Pope would exhibit. And here the Pope would say, "Why don't the Americans understand? Why don't the Spanish see? We have to save this vibrant community." He was very frustrated by the fact that many countries would not accept Jews. Testimony from Monsignor Giovanni Ferrofino further states that after he left Rome, he was posted as secretary to the nuncio to Haiti and the Dominican Republic. He told us that on at least 2 times a year, he would receive a double encrypted telegram directly from Pope Pius XII. He would then personally decipher the telegrams, and then together with the nuncio, Archbishop Silvani, he would travel 1.5 days by car to meet with Dictator General Trujillo to ask in the name of Pope Pius XII for at least 800 visas for Jews to enter the Dominican Republic. Trujillo would only accept the Pope's direct representative for this request. He would always grant the request also. After the Jews would arrive, Monsignor Ferrofino would then further help them by routing them into the United States through Cuba, Mexico, and Canada. At least 1,600 Jews per year were saved this way, from 1939 to 1945. That's over 11,000 Jews were saved. When we brought the video of this interview back to Rome and showed it to the Vatican experts, they said, "We have no idea this ever occurred." After we returned to Rome and delivered this video interview with Monsignor Ferrofino, we were surprised to learn that the Vatican had not heard of this. So we did a little research, and the only mention of this in the Acts and Documents of the Holy See was where General Trujillo said that in the name of Pius XII he would accept 3,500 Jewish children to come to the Dominican Republic. Unfortunately, they were unable to get these children out of Europe. On October 16, 1943, Pope Pius XII directly and personally acted to intercede to stop the arrest of the Roman Jews. Early that morning on October 16th, Princess Pignatelli Cortez Aragon personally traveled to the Vatican and informed Pius XII of the arrest of the Jews of Rome. The Pope, who was outraged, immediately summoned the Cardinal Secretary of State Maglione to immediately protest the arrest of the German ambassador to the Holy See, Ernst von Weizsäcker. This was in the presence of Princess Pignatelli. Pius XII, not trusting von Weizsäcker would accomplish anything, then sent his nephew, Carlo Pacelli, to meet with Bishop Hudel, who was a distrusted Nazi bishop who was excluded from all Vatican activities. He instructed Bishop Hudel to write a threatening letter to the German commander who he had known. This too failed because the letter would never arrive in time to be effective. The Pope then sent his close confidant, Superior of the Salvatorians, Father Pancratius Pfeiffer, to meet personally with General Rainer Stahel, city governor of Rome, and deliver the threat of a papal public denunciation, which Stahel feared could lead to the Vatican invasion orders to come from an enraged Adolf Hitler. Mindful of the potential chain of events, General Stahl then telephoned Heinrich Himmler directly and used a military reason with major military consequences to end the arrests. He claimed that there would be riots in Rome and then throughout Italy and Europe, and if the arrests continued, the supply chain to the German troops would stop and they can simply write off all the troops fighting in the south of Italy. Believing Stahl, at 12 noon, Himmler ordered the arrests were to stop immediately. Then, additional orders came from Hitler's headquarters, resulting in the arrest ending at 2 o'clock in the afternoon of the day they began. There are critics today who claim that the only reason the Germans stopped the arrest at 2 o'clock was they couldn't find any Jews, which is outrageous because anybody knows that the Germans never stopped hunting for Jews. The reason is ridiculous. Then, up to 13,000 Jews of Rome escaped into the forest, and they were hidden by the Vatican in literally one day. In the diaries of Adolf Eichmann, the Church's assistance to Jews is revealed in the sentence, a good number of them hid in convents or were helped by men and women of the Church. This article appeared in L'Osservatore Romano on October 25, 1943, just 9 days after the roundup of the Roman Jews. It's entitled "The Charity of the Holy Father." The Pope acted personally to stop the arrest and hid all of the Jews of Rome in ecclesiastical houses, convents, monasteries, rectories, universities, and in private Catholic homes, and in the Vatican itself. Many knew that the Vatican was sending out trucks with food and supplies for the care for the refugees hiding throughout Rome and Italy. On October 16, 1943, after the Pope was successful in ending the arrest of the Roman Jews, he sent trusted priests and lay people around Rome and Italy with verbal and some written orders to say all doors should be open to protect the refugees. It was only with the Pope's direct orders that cloister could be broken. This enabled men to enter convents and women to enter monasteries. Food and supplies were delivered by little Vatican trucks throughout Rome and Italy to facilitate the sheltering of the Jews. These refugees had no ration cards, and so it was the responsibility of various safe houses to feed them. The personal housekeeper to Pope Pius XII, Sister Pascalina Lienert, was placed in charge of organizing the delivery of food to the various shelters. Here we see the signs placed on all the ecclesiastical houses in Italy and the convents and monasteries enabling the church to shelter Jews. These were placed by General Stahl, who commanded that no German troops, are permitted to enter the premises of the Holy See. It declares that these are the properties of the Holy See. And down below you see a statement from Pope Pius XII, made August of 1944, where he states, "For centuries, Jews have been unjustly treated and despised. It is time that they were treated with justice and humanity. God wills it, and the Church wills it. St. Paul tells us that the Jews are our brothers. They should also be welcomed as friends." Here we see the sworn testimony of a nun who states that in 1943, during the period of the Nazi occupation of Rome, she declares that that period everyone knew that the Holy Father, Pius XII, gave orders to open the doors of all convents to hide Jews. And she said that she recalls that the Vatican used to send food to help her feed their 60 Jewish guests. Here we have another example of a diary entry which was made by Augustinian nuns in 1943, which was mandatory to keep archives and to keep certain records, where they state that Pope Pius XII ordered their group to take in the Jews and their Jewish guests. The nuns report how they made alterations to make their guests as comfortable as possible, and they also state that the Holy Father is personally feeling the suffering of the Jews. They protected their assets and names many of the people who stayed with them. In the summer residence of Pope Pius XII, Castel Gandolfo, there was an estimated 8,000 refugees that were being hidden. Some of these were Italians and some were Jews, not knowing exactly how many, but they do know a large number of Jewish refugees were protected there. The Pope's apartments, papal apartments themselves, was used as a birthing area for newborn children. And as you can see from these photographs, people were sleeping on the stairs and around all over the facility. Now, from the wartime intelligence report of Alan Dulles, 1942 to 1945, reports the bombing of Castel Gandolfo, where 1,000 people were injured and 300 killed, confirming that Castel Gandolfo was housing refugees. Here are some news reports from the Palestine Post indicating the Vatican's intervention to save the Jews of Rome. Here you can see the papal guards of the Pope's summer residence was increased and so on, and the Pope assured the chief rabbi of Vatican aid and so on. The most astonishing thing is that there are critics out there today that state that all of these things that occurred, including babies being born in the Pope's bedroom, were all done without the Pope's knowledge or permission. Below we see the image of the actual telegram signed by Pope Pius XII sent to the region of Hungary, Admiral Horthy. And here, Pope Pius XII personally intercedes to stop the deportation of the Hungarian Jews at the exact moment of their greatest danger, according to internationally respected historian Sir Martin Gilbert. Horthy's compliance to the Pope's request resulted in saving an estimated 200,000 Jewish lives. Jenno Levi, the leading scholar for the Jewish extermination in Hungary, observed, when speaking about Pope Pius XII, that it was a particularly regrettable irony that the one person in all occupied Europe who did more than anyone else to halt the dreadful crime and alleviate its consequences is today made the scapegoat for the failures of all the others. Pave the Way Foundation took testimony from Jurek Adam, who, as a young Jewish boy, sought refuge in the Apostolic Nunciature in Budapest. 1 week after the telegram was sent to Admiral Hawthey from the Pope, Jurek Adam went to the Nunciature for asylum. This was in July of 1944. Jurek Adam was physically in the Nunciature when the bell rang, and he opened the door to discover the family of Admiral Hawthey, who he admitted and was granted political asylum. Soon after that, German soldiers came to collect the family and to retrieve them, and he would not give them access and told them that they were not there. But what this does is it confirms the fact that the Admiral Hawthey did heed the telegram sent by Pope Pius XII, and his family was saved by the Apostolic Nunciature. On October 16, 1943, a telegram was received by the Vatican Secretary of State asking to help save 460 Polish rabbis. This is in the entry of the Acts and Documents of the Holy See, Volume 9. The apostolic delegate in Tokyo, Archbishop Morella, facilitated saving these rabbis by sending them to Shanghai and then to Hawaii and then on to the United States. To the right are the copies of the notations of the telegram in the Acts and Documents of the Holy See. We have the signed interview of a 97-year-old priest, Father Giancarlo Sentione, who, along with his community, was directed by the Holy See to hide, distribute cash, and Vatican passports to our desperate Jewish brothers and sisters in Poland and Croatia. Monsignor Sentione states that he worked with a Father Weber, who personally went to the papal apartments to get cash and Vatican passports for Jews leaving Poland and Germany. Pope Pius XII used his entire personal fortune to finance this. On October 26, 1943, 10 days after the roundup of the Roman Jews, OSS documents from the National Archives and Records Administration of the CIA reads that the Vatican has apparently for a long time been assisting Jews to escape. December 10, 1942, a telegram from Sir Anthony Eden at the Vatican reports that the reference to the Jewish vendetta may also suggest a reproach for the Vatican's protest against the anti-Jewish policy of the Vichy government in France. Here's a notice from the British Public Records Office dated 28 December 1942, where it states that the Catholic authorities in France and the papal legate intervened when the Laval government was deporting the Jews. The secret telegram number 174 dated 11 September 1942 and received 15 September 1942 states the following from Sir Darcy Osborne, the British ambassador to the Holy See. It says, "The Pope today confirmed to me that the nuncio at Vichy had protested against the persecution of the Jews in France." We have letters from Cardinal Luigi Maglione, Vatican Secretary of State, and Archbishop Giovanni Montini, who was the future Pope Paul VI, where they sent money to Archbishop Palatucci of Campania, which was sent directly from Pope Pius XII, specifically for the care of the Jews protected in your diocese. From the archives of the Holocaust in Jerusalem, there are key phrases throughout these records indicating papal intervention on behalf of the Jewish people. One of the greatest misconceptions is that Pope Pius XII was a Nazi collaborator. Nothing could be further from the truth. And in fact, this document and the following slide will show that Pope Pius XII was fully aware that he was going to be kidnapped and probably killed, and he still operated to save lives when many other religious leaders and political leaders who were not even in the slightest amount of danger did nothing. But here is an affidavit from German General Karl Wolff, the SS commander in Italy and deputy to Heinrich Himmler, which was certified March 28, 1972, just after his release from prison. Here General Wolff reports of the plan he was ordered to develop by Hitler to kidnap Pope Pius XII. Below is a recently discovered map and an Italian news story, which was the invasion plan of General Wolff. September 6, 1943, Pope Pius XII called the cardinals together for a secret meeting to discuss what he believed to be the imminent invasion of the Vatican, where he expected to be kidnapped. Pius XII told the cardinals to be prepared to leave immediately for a neutral country, this was probably Portugal, when the Vatican was invaded. He placed a letter of resignation in his desk and stated that when he is arrested, they will drag Eugenio Pacelli out, not Pope Pius XII. The cardinals were instructed to go to Portugal, where they would elect a new pope and form a government in exile. Below are brief documents where the anticipated invasion was noted on how the Vatican was going to protect the Vatican Museum and the Vatican Library. On the right is a handwritten note from the Cardinal Secretary of State ordering the Swiss Guard not to resist invading forces with firepower because it would just be an annihilation of the Swiss Guard. Former investigative reporter with the Washington Post, Dan Kurzman, recently wrote his book, A Secret Mission. Kurzman recounted his personal interview with General Karl Wolff, SS Commandant for Italy and Deputy to Heinrich Himmler. The book reveals the details of the plan Hitler ordered Wolff to prepare to kidnap Pope Pius XII, kill the Roman Curia, and to seize the Vatican. Mindful that this plan was executed, the German army would have to be burdened with dealing with potential riots throughout Europe. General Wolff did everything in his power to convince Hitler of the dangers of ordering the kidnapping. Other German officials, including German ambassador to the Holy See, Ernst von Weizsäcker, also sent false cables to Berlin to calm Hitler. These cables were later called tactical lies. The Pope also recognized that if he further provoked Hitler, tens of thousands of innocent civilians and concentration camp victims could be killed, adding to the carnage. Pope Pius XII successfully used the threat of a public condemnation with General Rainer Stahel, city governor of Rome, on October 16, 1943, which ended the arrest of the Roman Jews at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on the day they began. On October 16, 1943, the Nazis began their early morning roundup of the Roman Jews. Using the threat of public denunciation, Pope Pius XII was able to force the city governor of Rome, General Stahel, to intercede to stop the arrest at 2 p.m. the very day they began. Although Pius XII lifted cloister and ordering the sheltering of between 7,000 to 12,000 Jews of Rome in literally one day, today the Roman Jews criticized Pius XII for remaining silent as they sent 1,002 Jews to Auschwitz. The document we locate in Germany is the cable ordering the Jews of Rome to be transported to the work camp in Mauthausen as hostages, not to the death camp in Auschwitz. This is also stated in the transcript of the trial proceedings of Adolf Eichmann, which is below in the highlighted section. Based on this evidence, the real possibility exists that while the Vatican did attempt to free the 1,259 Jews who were arrested, they may have been told that they will be sent to Mauthausen and their release could be negotiated at a later date. If Pius XII publicly protested, however, General Stahel would no longer feel obliged to stop the arrest, and up to 12,000 Jews might have been massacred. In the trial of Adolf Eichmann, here, Mr. Hausner states that the Pope himself intervened to save the Jews of Rome. The next 3 slides will show you that the policies and actions of Pope Pius XII resulted in the establishment of the modern state of Israel. In 1917, at the request of the Jewish community of Switzerland, Archbishop Pacelli intercedes to protect the Jews of Palestine who were afraid that they would suffer the same fate as the Armenians and would be massacred by the Ottoman Turks. Pacelli successfully negotiated with the German government to guarantee the safety of the Jews of Palestine. You also note the news article on the left from the Jerusalem Post dated October 10, 1958, at the death of Pius XII, where Dr. Guido Mendez, who was the Orthodox Jewish boy who grew up with the Pope, recalls his early days with the Pope. But the significant last paragraph states that when Mr. Mendez was speaking to the Pope about the audience he had in 1945 with 80 Jewish survivors, that the Pope told this group, "Soon you will have a Jewish state." This is 3 years before the birth of the modern state of Israel. In November of 1947, the United Nations voted for the partitioning of Palestine. 11 states were against and 33 in favor. Of the 33 in favor, 17 were Catholic countries who asked the Pope what they should do, and the Pope said he did not object to the creation of the Jewish state. The news article to the right discusses Israel's desire for diplomatic recognition by Spain, and Pope Pius XII encouraged Spain to recognize the State of Israel. Here, in 1917, we see that Nachum Sokolov, who was the president of the World Zionist Organization, requested a meeting with Archbishop Pacelli, who was then nuncio to Germany, to discuss a Jewish homeland in Palestine. Pacelli himself was so excited about this, he arranged for a special audience for Sokolov to meet with Pope Benedict XV, much to Sokolov's surprise. Below is a handwritten note from Nachum Sokolov acknowledging his 1917 meeting, and also requesting another meeting in 1925 to discuss the same subject. The news article, dated February 14, 1925, from the Jewish Bulletin in New York, reports the most cordial meeting with Pacelli on the establishment of a Jewish state. Another significant example of Pacelli's attitude towards Israel was that in June of 1926, in Berlin, the German pro-Palestine Committee to promote the Jewish settlement of Palestine was established, and it had some very prominent members, including Albert Einstein, Thomas Mann, and numerous others. Archbishop Pacelli joined this initiative personally and explicitly instructed German Catholics to join the pro-Palestine group. Now here we have an example, a further example of documents from the war years, which are currently in the Vatican Secret Archives, but are still available for anyone to see. We had made this effort by going to Campania, where we discovered 2,335 pages from the Diocese of Campania. And here, as an example, you'll see on the left, Mr. David Loebman is requesting help from the Vatican, and on the right, you'll see the response from the Vatican Secretary of State. Now, here they were asking for medical assistance, finding their family, visas to visit other countries, and in many cases, the Vatican was successful in succeeding in getting these objectives, and sometimes they were not successful. But there are also 4 documents with receipts directly indicating that Pope Pius XII personally sent money on 4 different occasions specifically for the care of the Jews in the diocese. Many Catholic priests made statements condemning Nazism and were imprisoned for this, and here Pacelli is asking the diocese for the information about these people who were imprisoned, and down below we know that Adolf Hitler was meeting Mussolini in Rome, and on that day, Pope Pius XI and Cardinal Pacelli closed the Vatican completely and left Rome for Castel Gandolfo because they said that the air was foul in Rome. In 1933, the Holy See signed a concordat with Germany, which was designed to protect the interests of the Church in Germany. Many critics accused them of recognizing the Nazi regime, which is absolute nonsense. Since just 30 days prior to this, as you'll see in the next slide, the Jews of Palestine also signed a concordat with Germany. However, the 2 documents we have here is where the Secretary of State drafts a 42-page letter to the German ambassador complaining about the German violations to the Concordat, and then answers many German accusations. And this includes the arrest of many nuns and priests without due process, and so on. Then we also have a document with the Secretary of State corresponding with the Archbishop of Munich, and handwritten notes dealing with Pacelli's firm stand against Nazis and the violations of the Concordat. Here you'll see, as previously mentioned, the Jews of Palestine signed an agreement with Germany 1 month before the Vatican signed their agreement. This was called the Havara Agreement. Up in the upper right, you'll see a newspaper article dated September 13, 1933, from the Palestine Post, where it states that the Pope signs a pact with Germany. Jews must be treated with Christian charity. Here on November 29, 1945, Pope Pius XII meets with a delegation of 80 Jewish survivors who personally came to Pius XII to thank him for the generosity shown to them during the war. The article below again mentions the Pius XII's remarkable statement that he said at this audience, "Soon you will have a Jewish state." This was 3 years before the creation of the modern state of Israel. On April 4, 1933, Cardinal Pacelli intervenes for Jews seeking Vatican assistance to combat anti-Semitic actions in Germany. Below you'll see a letter which was written by Cardinal Pacelli, Secretary of State, to Archbishop Orsenigo, who was the papal nuncio in Germany, just a few months after Hitler seized power. Although a number of critics were forced to acknowledge this intervention, they simply claimed that nothing much came of it. But, as a result of Pacelli's written instructions, several German bishops made public statements clearly understood as the defense of the persecuted Jews. Here we have a very unusual testimony from a woman who's alive today in Italy, who recalls the audience that she had with her family, her mother, her uncles, and so on, with Pope Pius XII in 1947. Now, she was there with her uncle, and her Jewish uncle looks at Pope Pius XII, and he recognizes him, and he said that he was dressed as a monk, and who physically went to the ghetto and brought him into the Vatican. Immediately upon saying this, her uncle was silenced by Cardinal Montini, who was Paul VI, later Paul VI, telling him, "Don't ever repeat this statement again." This woman was an eyewitness to this, and her mother, who was 103 years of age, also was an eyewitness to this event. So this opens a possibility, because it was Pacelli's manner that he would never ever take anything on say-so. He would want to see everything firsthand, and it's very possible that he may have dressed as a Franciscan monk and walked into the ghetto to see what was happening personally. Here we have a marble placard that was placed by the Italian Jewish community to honor Pope Pius XII, dated March 1946. And it states, "The Jews to His Holiness Pius XII, the Congress of Delegates of the Italian Israelite Communities, held in Rome for the first time after the liberation, is obliged to pay tribute to Your Holiness, and to express the deepest sense of gratitude from all Jews for the show of human brotherhood by the Church during the years of persecution when their lives were put in danger by Nazi fascist atrocities." This was approved by the Third Congress of the Italian Israelite Communities, held March 1946. This placard has mysteriously disappeared. A few examples of documents prepared by different Jewish organizations which were given to some of the archbishops in gratitude. May 26, 1955, the Israeli Philharmonic Orchestra, which was composed of Jewish refugees from many nations, toured Italy. The conductor, Paul Klecki, had requested that the orchestra on its first visit to Italy play for the Pope as a gesture of gratitude for help that his church had given to those persecuted by Nazis. Remarkable observations is that almost all of the Jews and Israelis who lived through the war and were touched by the Vatican in some way had one opinion of Pius XII, and all of those who were born after the war, in the safety of the defeat of Nazism, had an entirely different view. Now, here are next few slides are showing some of the appreciation, the phrases and statements made by prominent Jewish leaders: Nachum Goldman, president of the World Jewish Congress; Golda Meir, and Chief Rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Herzog, who was the father of the future president of Israel. Continuing on, we have remarks from Dr. Leon Kubowitsky, the Secretary General of the World Jewish Congress, and Chief Rabbi Marcus Melchior, Chief Rabbi of Denmark, who had stated that if the Pope had spoken out, Hitler would probably have massacred many more than 6 million Jews. Additional remarks from Dr. Raphael Cantoni, who was the President of the Union of Jewish Communities of Italy; Michael Telocozzo, who's the Director of the Holocaust Center in northern Israel. We have remarks here also from Serge Klausfeld, the famous Nazi hunter, and Dr. Chaim Weizmann, the first president of Israel. Israeli historian and ambassador Pinchas Lapide stated in his book, Three Popes and the Jews, that Pius XII's intervention and actions saved between 847,000 and 882,000 Jews. After the death of Pius XII, Lapide stated that there were many in Israel that wanted to plant a Pius XII forest in the Judean hills with 860,000 trees. Some additional comments from prominent Jewish personalities: Sir Martin Gilbert, world-famous historian and scholar on World War II. Pope Pius XII deserves thanks, not blame. Comments from the second Prime Minister of Israel, Moshe Sharett, Richard Breitman, and the former Chief Rabbi of Rome, Elio Tawaf, said, more than anyone else. We have the opportunity to appreciate the great kindness, filled with compassion and magnanimity, that the Pope displayed during the terrible years of persecution and terror. Here a very significant statement was made by Albert Einstein in an article written December 23, 1940, where Einstein says that only the Church stood squarely across the path of Hitler's campaign for suppressing truth. I never had any special interest in the Church before, but now I feel a great affection and admiration, because the Church alone has had the courage and persistence to stand for intellectual truth and moral freedom. I am forced thus to confess that what I once despised, I now praise unreservedly. And down below you'll notice something also significant, was that the chief rabbi of Rome from 1939 to 1945, Rabbi Zoli, after the war, converted to Roman Catholicism. And when he did so, he took the name Eugenio, which is in homage to Pius XII. And soon after that, his wife converted as well, and she took the name Eugenia, also in homage to the secret work of Pope Pius XII. If you do it in the investigations online, we suggest you go to the Jewish Virtual Library for three very, very important defenses of Pope Pius XII. The first, 860,000 lives saved, the truth of Pius XII and the Jews. In this article, you'll see eyewitness information and testimony from different German officers and inmates in the concentration camps. Second, A Question of Judgment, Pius XII and the Jews, by Dr. Joseph Lichten. This article was written just after the Holocaust play The Deputy came out, and it was a very strong defense of Pope Pius XII. Dr. Lichten was also the International Affairs Director of the Anti-Defamation League. And the third one, How to Manufacture a Legend, the controversy over the alleged silence of Pope Pius XII in World War II, by Father Robert Graham. Father Graham was one of the 4 Jesuits who was tasked with combing through the closed section of the war years of the Vatican archives to come up with the 5,125 documents currently in the Acts and Documents of the Holy See during the Second World War. Eugenio Pacelli had a great love for the Jewish people, and this is probably because of the friendship that he forged as a young boy. He grew up with an Orthodox Jewish boy, Guido Mendez, and regularly used to share Shabbat meals with him, and he learned how to speak Hebrew and borrowed many of the books of the great rabbis. And when in 1938, when the Italian racial laws caused Guido Mendez to lose his job, Eugenio Pacelli, Secretary of State, reached out to him and said, "We will hire you, the Vatican will hire you and take you to Argentina for safety." Dr. Mendez said, "No, I want to go to Palestine." And then Pacelli then intervened so that he could get him his visas to go to Switzerland first and then to Palestine. This is confirmed by the following slide, which is a book written by the son of Guido Mendez, Ambassador Meyer Mendez. But the story continues that he was in this particular article, you'll note, which is very, very significant, that the highlighted section of the article on the bottom, in this article he discusses the fact that the Pope had met with a group of survivors from the Italian concentration camps in 1945 and had told these people, "Soon you will have a Jewish state." This is 3 years before the birth of the modern state of Israel. While in Israel, we located the book written in French by Israeli Ambassador Meyer Mendez, who was the son of Dr. Guido Mendez, boyhood friend of Eugenio Pacelli. The book clearly recalls the intervention of Eugenio Pacelli to save the life of his father by obtaining the necessary visas for Guido to emigrate to Palestine in 1938. It also discusses his father's recollection of his interaction with Pacelli in their youth. We've located some very significant documents from the American Jewish Committee, which clearly acknowledged the efforts of Pope Pius XII to help save the Jewish people during the war. In these letters, the AJC was planning their address to the Pope in an audience of July of 1957. In our investigation, we located a number of letters of gratitude that were issued by many Jewish survivors of the Holocaust, addressed to many of the convents and monasteries that sheltered them during the war. The demonization of Pope Pius XII began 5 years after his death with a 1960 play called The Deputy, written by German communist Ralph Hochhoff. Hochhoff accused Pius XII of inaction during the Holocaust because he was a Nazi sympathizer, anti-Semitic, and cared only about Vatican assets rather than the loss of Jewish lives. This fictitious play was rewritten, financed, and produced by the KGB in their attack against the Vatican, with their operation called Seat 12. This dirty trick was one of the most successful character assassinations of the 20th century. Hochhoff's close friend to this day is David Irving, the internationally known Holocaust denier. World-renowned historian of World War II Sir Martin Gilbert calls this play well-crafted fiction not at all based on historical evidence. In this article, Moscow's Assault on the Vatican, the highest-ranking KGB agent ever to defect, Lieutenant General Pacepa, clearly shows the entire operation that the KGB took to rewrite and produce the play The Deputy in their operation called Seat 12. It's very clear on precisely what they did to gain entrance at the Vatican archives, to fraudulently obtain pictures of documents which we have the names of the people that forged them, to try to make this play more believable. This was a very sad commentary, but wound up being the most effective character assassinations of the 20th century. Soon after the play The Deputy was produced, there were many Jewish leaders, this one article from Rabbi Harold Saperstein and others, who were alive during the war and immediately came to the defense of Pius XII. Unfortunately, as it goes, sometimes the negativity catches on and the defense falls on deaf ears. Here are some additional examples. In the Jewish Chronicle from London, October 11, 1963, the article, Israelis Defend the Name of Pope Pius XII. This was in after the opening of The Deputy in London had occurred. Many people came to the Pope's rescue. And here, 17th of April, 1955, the Jews of Italy declared this to be the Day of Gratitude for the assistance of Pope Pius XII. One of the most effective condemnations of Pope Pius XII was with John Cornwell's book, Hitler's Pope. John Cornwell is Catholic, and I think from the very beginning you'll see that the book is filled with a lot of theories which, to his credit, to Mr. Cornwell's credit, he has retracted in the book he wrote after this one called Pontiff in Winter. But even from the very beginning, you'll see the picture on the right of Hitler's Pope, and apparently Pacelli is being saluted by a German officer there. And if you look at the actual credit for the photo from Penguin Books Limited, it says the cover photograph was Cardinal Pacelli, the future Pope Pius XII, leaving the presidential palace in Berlin March 1939, which is a real neat trick since he was elected Pope March 2nd of 1939. But if you look above, you'll see this is the actual photograph of Pacelli leaving the 1927 birthday reception for German President von Hindenburg. Pacelli left Germany in 1929, never to return again, and the soldiers you see over there are not Nazis, they are Weimar Republic soldiers. In addition, Cornwell had stated that he spent several months in the Vatican secret archives when, in fact, according to sign-in sheets, I think he spent a few hours over a 3-week period. He also does not speak the languages, Italian, German, or French, which are the languages of the Vatican archived records. He stated that he had access to the secret closed section, which is not true. And so you'll see many of the allegations that he makes in his statements. For example, he feels that Pacelli was anti-Semitic because of an action that took place in 1917. He states that the chief rabbi of Germany asked Archbishop Pacelli to intercede to get the release of the palms used for Sukkot, and he was refused by Pacelli. Well, in fact, in this next slide, you'll see that this is absolutely not true. If you were to look up Hitler's Pope in Wikipedia, you would note that Cornwell establishes Pacelli's anti-Semitism because in 1917, apparently the chief rabbi of Munich requested help from Pacelli to retrieve the palms for Sukkot, the Jewish holiday of Sukkot, and Pacelli refused. This is absolutely not true. We discovered the documents and have them on our website, that in 1917 Archbishop Eugenio Pacelli intervenes on behalf of the Jewish community, and he is passionate about it. He passionately pleads with Rome to try to get the Pope to intercede with the Italian government to gain the release of these palms. They were unsuccessful because Italy did not recognize the Holy See or the Vatican, and it didn't succeed. But to see the translation of the letter shows that he passionately tried to do this in the name of Jewish-Catholic relations, and he's saying that there's only 2 weeks left before these palms can be distributed to all the Jews of Germany, and he's pleading with the Holy See to act. In his book, Pontiff in Winter, author John Cornwell retracts his basic position taken in Hitler's Pope. And he states he would now argue, in the light of the debates and evidence following Hitler's Pope, that Pope Pius XII had so little scope of action that it was impossible to judge the motives of his silence during the war, while Italy was under the heel of Mussolini and later occupied Germany. This book, by the way, is Pontiff in Winter attacks Pope John Paul II. In her critical book, Under His Very Windows, Professor Susan Zuccotti apparently refused to accept any eyewitness testimony. She would only accept an actual document which had the signature of the Pope ordering the Catholic Church to intercede on behalf of the Jews. We have located numerous first-hand testimonies where priests and bishops received their directives verbally and acted. In one case, Father Aldo Brunacci states that he was called in to meet Archbishop Niccolini of Assisi and was shown a document ordering the protection of the Jews. But because he didn't physically see the signature on the directive, it was of no consequence. Professor Zuccotti also completely discounts the confirmed testimony of Pope Pius XII's personal actions to stop the arrest of the Jews of Rome 2 p.m. on the day they began. She also does not accept that there existed a direct threat against the Pope's life, the Curia, and the Vatican State itself by the Nazi occupiers of Rome. This serious omission of evidence is clearly exemplified by the concluding sentence in her book. And I quote, "In Italy, at least large numbers of priests, nuns, monks, and Catholic laypersons risked their lives to save Jews with little guidance from the Pope." This is a very telling newspaper article. It appeared in the Palestine Post in July of 1944, and it reports an incident that occurred in 1941 with a German Jewish boy who had an audience with Pius XII. At that audience, the Jewish boy came to speak to the Pope about the starvation of many Jewish inmates that were being held in Italy, and the Pope was very happy to receive him. And he said to the young man, he said, "You are German too, aren't you?" asked the Pope. And the author explained that he was born in Germany, but he was a Jew. And the Pope then invited him to listen to the entire story, which he then explained that he had done very well in coming to him, and that he was to bring a report back the next day to be given to the Secretary of State, who was dealing with the question. Then he says, But now, my son, you are a young Jew. I know what that means, and I hope you will always be proud to be a Jew." And then Pius XII raised his voice so that everyone in the hall, including German soldiers, could hear him say this. He said, "My son, whether you are worthier than others, only the Lord knows. But believe me, you are at least as worthy as every other human being that lives on our earth. And now, my Jewish friend, go with the protection of the Lord, and never forget, you must always be proud to be a Jew." The following 7 slides are going to show you dozens and dozens of newspaper articles which I personally researched before we started this project. We used the terms Jews and Pope from 1939 to 1958 through the archives of the Jerusalem Post or the Palestine Post and the New York Times. And I can tell you that I could not find one negative article about Pius XII. In fact, we found dozens where the Pope spoke out against the persecution of the Jews and the atrocities committed by the Nazis. Now, just look at the volume of articles and then you be the judge. The next few slides contain samples of the newspaper articles that we discovered in both the New York Times and the Palestine Post. We gave you a brief sampling. To see these in detail, please go to our website, www.ptwf.org. You decide if the Pope was a silent Pope from these articles. mission of Pave the Way Foundation is to identify and eliminate non-theological obstacles between the religions. Consequently, we decided to bring this 46-year-old academic logjam public in order to begin a healing process. Pave the Way hosted an international symposium in Rome in order to allow the critics the opportunity to face the defenders and to allow everyone to prove their positions. We wanted to reveal the documents we had discovered as well. When we sent out the invitations, we were surprised when we were completely boycotted by all of the critics. They said that we were not scholarly enough and wouldn't participate because the arguments were to be heard by everyday people and the media. In this investigation, we discovered that most of those who actually lived through the horrors of the war and who were aided by the real actions of the Catholic Church and their followers had a positive opinion of Eugenio Pacelli. This is evident by the magnanimous statements of literally every world leader, every Jewish leader, and every Israeli leader of the era. However, those who were born after the war and who saw the financial benefit of latching on to the negative bandwagon started by the fictitious play The Deputy came up with baseless theories which they could write very eloquent books about. These critics ignored basic logic and came up with a theory and simply said, "Prove this didn't happen." They used selective research, apparently without any consideration to the reality that these heroes were looking into the eyes of death every single day. They literally stripped from the Pope every acknowledged good deed of the Church and applied every negative theory to his papacy in order to make him the villain. The most disturbing fact is that these critics cannot come up with one shred of documented evidence to prove their theories, and yet the world simply accepts their statements as the truth. The archival historians will not accept a single word of eyewitness testimony in reaching their conclusions, so if it wasn't written, it didn't happen. They simply ignore the notion that life-saving orders and directives had to be delivered verbally or in encrypted messages. The truth is that Pacelli acted in secret to save lives when almost all those he saved never knew it was his personal acts that rescued them. These actions were all anonymous, the highest form of charity in our faith's tradition. According to our religious precepts, if you save one life, you save all humanity. How then can anyone give real credibility to the critics who sit in judgment today and say, well, he could have done this or he should have done that? For a clear picture, you must step back and ask yourself the question, what did every other religious or political leader of the day do to save lives? President Roosevelt refused to bomb the concentration camps or the railroad tracks that delivered their human cargo. He refused to allow the liner St. Louis to land in the United States in 1939, sending 1,000 Jews back to the horrors of Europe. When we hear his name, do people despise Roosevelt for this? No. Why then do they despise Pope Pius XII, who did act to save Jewish lives with German guns 200 yards under his very windows? Pave the Way Foundation stands ready at any time to expand the public knowledge of our documented findings to these events in order to remove this artificially created negativity between the faiths. Thank you for your attention.